Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending at what part of the day you're watching this episode of Data-Driven Formula One. My name is Patrick Henz, and I have the pleasure to welcome you to this very special episode. Maybe it sounds a little bit surreal to you, East Germany in Formula One. Maybe you think about series as For All Mankind on Apple Plus, uh, showing a scenario where the Russians won the space race, at least the beginning. Maybe you think about books like The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick, where Japan and Germany won the Second World War. And of course, we could discuss what happened if the space race hadn't been the race to space and the moon, but would have been a classic race. What would happen if we would have seen the two systems competing on the racetrack? But all of this we will not do. We will speak about something what really happened, even if the story is mainly forgotten. We speak about East German drivers and teams participating at Formula One Grand Prix. So welcome to this special episode. We start off with Erich Reif. He lived from 1900 to 1985. After the Second World War, Reif was one of the first manufacturers of racing cars in what was then the Soviet occupation zone, later known as the German Democratic Republic, GDR, Deutsche Demokratische Republik, if in German. Erich Reif, who was born 1900, had already owned the BMW agency in Chemnitz, and we explain a little bit later what's the relation to BMW and East Germany here. So he had this BMW or BMW agency in Chemnitz before the war. With the support of staff from the BMW plant in Eisenach, he was able to produce a small number of competition vehicles based on the BMW 328, 328, as you see it here on the right. So this is practically the original BMW 3 series, which still exists today. So based on this car, in his company immediately after the war, they started to use the base and to build up a race car based on this. Due to the design, this could be used in both sports car races and Formula 2. Erich Koch, the test engineer at the Eisenach plant, took care of tuning the engines while the bodies were made by chief engineer Georg Hufnagel. One of the racing cars was built in 1915 for Rudolf Rudi Krause, who started with it in the 1952 German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, but had to abandon the race earlier. So a lot of the races where we speak about today, these teams, they never participated in the whole season, but only practically at the German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. This is not only for logistics reason, shorter travel, but also the Nürburgring, more than 20 kilometers long, had in the 50s special regulations that they not only had the Formula One cars participating, but they filled up the race with Formula 2 cars. This to make it more attractive for the spectators, because you would see the race, the cars coming by like 5 times, because it was such a long racetrack. So to make it more attractive, they included Formula 2 cars to this Grand Prix weekend. Paul greift zu. After completing his apprenticeship as a toolmaker and mechanic, Paul greift zu worked in his famous motor vehicle repair shop from 1920. In 21, he took part in a long-distance drive in a Dixie car. Had been small cars produced by BMW from Meiningen to Suhl. In 1925, he won his first race, the Saalfeld Hill Climb. Hill climb races had been very popular in Europe, 1950s, 1960s. And in 38, Greifswald won the German Grand Prix for sports cars. During the Second World War, Greifswald campaigned for the human treatment and accommodation of forced laborers, which is why he's also known, at least locally, as the Oskar Schindler of Suhl. Paul Greifswald was one of the best German racing drivers in the 1940s and 50s. Despite his major professional commitments, he never lost touch with the people of his hometown, and his sporting success made him a role model among young fans, something he always lived up to. Even today, we see various of the local schools, streets, and stadiums named after him. His most successful year had been 1951, where he achieved his victories with BMW car, at least based on a BMW car, using a BMW motor engine, but built by himself. So some of the successes included first place at the Formula 2 race at the Eifel race in Western Germany. On the, of course, the Nürburgring behind Paul Rietzsch, Fritz Ries, and Willi Hicks, winner of the opening race of the Autobahnspinne Dresden, now we are in Eastern Germany, winner of the International Formula 2 race with 29 cars on the Avus in Berlin, Western Germany, winner of the race on the Halle Saar Loop, and winner of the Sachsenring ahead of West German driver Hans Stuck. If you're asking yourself, but why? There was maybe not a war yet, but there was always the two countries, and people from one part couldn't travel to the other part. Yes, but there was exception for sportsmen, sportswomen who represented the German Democratic Republic. So they got special visas to participate in events in Germany and maybe other Western countries. The following year ended Greifswald's career in a tragic way. On May 10, 1952, he died in a training accident on the Dessau racetrack for the third Dessau car and motorcycle race. The cause was suspected to be a material defect. On the photo, you see this stone, which was originally at the point where he had his fatal accident, but later this was changed, the stone, to the stadium bearing his own name. After his death, Rudolf Krause, another Eastern German driver, drove his car, the BMW-powered Formula 2 car, at the 1953 German Grand Prix. The car was entered by Greifswald's widow, Dora. He finished in 14th place, 2 laps behind the winning car. And on the photo, you see the car, as you can also see it in the local museum. So this car, for example, early on won the Formula 2 Grand Prix at the Avus-Rennen, the photo behind the car. If you look at it, I mean, it's of course, not of course, but it is silver, as typically for German cars. But if you look at the design, it was, of course, strongly inspired by the successful Italian cars. Especially, it reminds me, of course, to the Alfa Romeo Alfetta, the car which won the 1950 and 1951 Formula One championship. It was the leading car, dominating car. So no surprise to take this as an inspiration. That's the first for today. And with this, we come to another East German driver, Ernst Chlodwig. He lived from May 23, 1903 to April 1973. And you see already on the photo, he had a different approach, even if he also built his car himself. In the early 1950s, Ernst Chlodwig was one of the best racing drivers in the German Democratic Republic, alongside Paul Greifswald, whom we already discussed, Rudolf Krause, and Edgar Barth, whom we will see a little bit later today. With his self-built Formula 2 BMW, he regularly came in the top 3 in national races. So national, we speak here about East Germany. In 52 and 53, he took part in the German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, meaning here he took place at the original Formula 1 weekend, exactly in this self-built BMW. Important, and we will see this later, be speaking here about a BMW, but this was not related anymore to the Western BMW, but there was still for a short time existing a separate BMW in Eastern Germany. As you see, the car, it's a complete different approach. And you may already have the idea what was different. Yes, the motor was behind the driver. So here we have a very early mid-engine car. So this made him the second driver after Harry Schell, who already competed in 1950 with a Cooper Formula 2 at Formula 1, also a mid-engine Cooper. But so he was the second to do so in his self-based car. So he was a little bit ahead of the time. In both Formula 2 races, he finished in the middle of the field, meaning he finished in the middle of the Formula 2 contenders. Of course, related to the whole participants, he was quite at the end, as the fastest cars had been, of course, built after Formula 1 regulations. Ernst Klodwig lived in East Berlin in the early 1950s. He ended his driving career at the end of 54, and after this he settled in West Germany, where he died later in Hamburg in the north of the country in 73. So now we had the two men participating with self-built cars, and now we come a little bit to a higher level, a little bit more professional, maybe a little bit more. Here we're speaking about a professional racing team, the EMW Rennkollektiv Eisenach Motorenwerk. And as I've already mentioned, Eisenach had before the war, in the war, still a BMW factory belonging to BMW in Munich, south of Germany, now Western Germany at that time. They continued being BMW until BMW West Germany opposites, and they had to change the name. They did it quite cleverly, just changed one letter, the first letter. So BMW, Bayerische Motorenwerke, they changed to Eisenacher Motorenwerk, now singular, as it was only one factory. And also the logo stayed very similar. Instead of the blue representing the Bavarian flag, they changed it to red, maybe representing communism. So the logo and the name still very similar to the original BMW. A little bit about history here. The VEB, Automobilwerk Eisenach, AW for short, was an automobile manufacturer in Eisenach in Thüringen, Eastern Germany. The plant was founded in 1896 as Fahrzeugfabrik Eisenach, car factory Eisenach in English. And it was taken over by BMW, the Bayerische Motorenwerke, in 1928 and nationalized after the Second World War by the Eastern German government. In 1951, so important date, the Munich-based BMW took legal action against the Eisenach-based company from using the name BMW. After being returned from Soviet administration, the plant was nationalized by the German Democratic Republic in 52 and initially renamed Eisenacher Motorenwerk EMV. So the big question, why these cars still had been racing as BMWs in 52 and 53, easy to explain. They had been built already in 1950 as BMW, so they still carried on the name, even if officially the factory was renamed to EMV. So the racing team was called EMW Rennkollektiv, but the engine, as it was produced in 1950s, was still named BMW, and due to this, the car was the EMW with using a BMW engine. The same as with the other cars later participating in 53, they still had the name, the engine named as BMW, as the factory only changed later from BMW to EMV. Sorry to be a little bit confusing here. In 1953, the plant was given its final name, VEB Automobilwerk Eisenach, and produced the most famous car still existing today somewhere on the streets in Eastern Germany and other Eastern European countries, the Wartburg. We could say in East Germany there had been two cars, the Trabi, the more well-known car, the iconic car, if you think about Eastern Germany's cars, and Wartburg, even if it was a communist country, it was more for the richer customers and mostly working for the government. So practically the Mercedes in Eastern Germany, while the Trabi maybe had been more related to the Volkswagen. Yeah. In 1991, the company was closed by the Treuhandanstalt due to the opening of the country and the later German reunification. And at the same time, Opel opened a plant in Eisenach, and they took over a lot of the workers and employees. So the city still continues up to today in the tradition of an automobile industry. From 1934 to 1934 to 41, BMW manufactured in Eisenach the BMW, the series, the 315, 319, 326, 377, 328, and 335. A total of 60,864 units left the factory. After World War II, so here we still had the BMW plant, but it was independent from the Western BMW in Munich. The factory continued producing independent, the BMW 321 and 340. The later became then the EMW 340. And now come directly to the racing team, the EMW Rennkollektiv. The state racing collective, the Rennkollektiv in German, was a state-run racing stable in the GDR that existed from the beginning of 51 to 57. Depending on their affiliation, the racing collective called themselves the DMW Racing Collective, the EFA Racing Collective, EMW Racing Collective, and finally AWE Racing Collective. On November 8, 52, the Ministry of Mechanical Engineering issued instructions from the 53 season onwards. The EFA Racing Collective would be placed directly under the control of the former BMW plant in Eisenach, as we had here really the country's expertise in car manufacturing, but also car racing. So this move made completely sense. Which had been operating then as EMW since July 5, 52. The EMW department was now called EMW Rennkollektiv, or Racing Collective as in English, and was housed in a former tank barracks in the north of the Eisenach city area. The engineer Walter Gerstenbach became the head of the collective. In addition to the racing cars and the two H3A transport trains from Johannisthal, the racing cars from the BMW factory, including the BMW 340S, were also taken over into the Racing Collective's inventory, which also includes then the Formula 2 car based on the BMW 300. Edgar Baas competed for the BMW racing team in the 53 German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, as already explained why. It was the only time that a GT racing team took part in a race for the Automobile World Championship. Of course, this is a little bit discussable. Why EMW thinks that they've been the only racing team is because the others practically had been one-man shows. the drivers participated with their self-constructed cars. Of course, they also brought maybe some family members to support and other mechanics, but this was on a lower professional level than EMW Rennkollektiv. So yes, you may discuss if it was the only racing team, but on the other hand, you may agree as here we had professional organization participating. And not only in Formula 2, unfortunately, I don't have the rights to show you the car, but I use a little bit AI. So this is as the EMV car looked like. If you are interested, search a little bit in the internet and you find some photos, but again, I don't have the rights to show you. So that's why I used AI, but this is how the car looked like, which participated 53 at the Nürburgring. Besides this, they also did sports car racing. So here we see the 54 aerodynamic EMW 1500 Coupe CCM Rennsportwagen. So quite beautiful and of course inspired by other aerodynamic race cars as before this used by Auto Union and Mercedes-Benz. Also a little bit it reminds me to the Maserati birdcage. So speak a little bit about Edgar Barth. In the late 1950s, there had been two Porsche 978 RSK entered at the Formula 2 races, as at that time there had been a little bit a loophole, and so Formula 2 not necessarily had to be open wheels cars, but also could have been a car like the Porsche 7 ASK Spider, as you see on the photo, only having one seat, but not an open wheel car. It was interesting for Porsche to participate, also for marketing, even if they had not been very competitive, especially in comparison to Formula 1 cars as on the Nürburgring. But they used this also to earn experience, and later they built open car Formula 2 cars based on this platform. The 718 was first modified by moving the seat into the center of the car, and subsequently in later years proper open wheelers were built. In '57 it was used by the official Porsche team as driver, besides Edgar Barth, the Italian Umberto Maglioli, and I think from Luxembourg, the Écurie Marsbergen also participated with such a Porsche using Karel Godin de Beaufort as driver. The photo here is from the 1957 Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, showing Edgar Barth on the podium of the Formula 2 class. He didn't won, but I think he became third. Nevertheless, as it was a Formula 2 car, no points for him, but he was on the podium, so quite a success. Wilfried Edgar Barth, as it was his full name, was a German racing driver who competed under the East German flag as he lived in Eastern German in '53, and as a West German as he switched the country in the meantime between '57 and '64, taking part in 5 Grand Prix in total. He also competed in sports car racing, winning the 1959 Targa Florio together with Wolfgang Seidel. Born January 1917 in Herold in Sachsen, German Empire at that time, later Eastern Germany, and he died in May '65 in Ludwigsburg, Baden-Württemberg, at that time Western Germany. I said he had first the German nationality, then East German nationality, and Western German nationality since '57. Here, his participation in the Formula 1 championship, even if always, at least in the with exception of the last with under Formula 2 regulations. So first with the Rennkollektiv EMW R2, as seen on my AI image. Later with the Porsche RS 550, only at the German Grand Prix. Porsche RSK next year, also only in German Grand Prix. Then interesting, 2 years later with the Porsche 1718, as you see in red here. And here he participated at the Grand Prix of Monza. Of course, also important for marketing, as besides important for the home market, the Nürburgring or Monaco, Monza, of course, one of the highlights of the Formula One season. And then many years later, he participated for the private Walker racing team with a Cooper T66, and this car was Formula One regulation, and here he did it before his home crowd at the German Grand Prix. If you're interested in Walker Racing Team, we did a special episode about it with also, I think, some surprising and maybe forgotten information. Jürgen's legacy also included his son, as he participated later at the 77 24 Hours of Le Mans. Together with Jackie Hicks and Harley Haywood, not only participated, but the team also won with a Porsche 936, the car you see here on the photo. So that's already the legacy, meaning we're at the end. Of course, East Germany was a very short topic in Formula One, not surprisingly, because Formula One, to be honest, I mean, it's, I think, one of the most capitalistic sports you can imagine. So, no field where Eastern European countries wanted to compete in opposite, for example, to the Olympics. But nevertheless, these teams existed, participated, and I hope you enjoyed this episode telling their short story. If you like it, please give it a like. Please follow our channel. You can do so in the video version at YouTube Music, or Spotify. On most other podcast catchers, we are also available with the audio version. If you have Spotify, I recommend you our mixtape, where we collected a lot of songs directly inspired by Formula One and some inspired by particular drivers. So check it out, and hope you like it, and see you next time.